Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, my name is Richard Bullock. I'm the Head of Cybersecurity at razorblue. Thank you for taking the time today out of your busy schedules to be here with us. We hope that you'll find this webinar informative and it will help you understand more about cybersecurity and the risk landscape and what solutions that we can provide to address these problems for you. The agenda today, we're going to be discussing the risk landscape. We're going to discuss what risk is, how we can approach it from a cybersecurity risk perspective. I'm going to later hand over to Jose, who will give us a deep dive into Microsoft Security Stack. It's one of the foundation technologies that supports razorblue and the security stack. And then finally, I'll move on and we'll discuss razorBlue's security solutions, what they are, what problems they address, and the benefits that they'll bring to your business. So as I said, my name is Richard Bullock. I'm the Head of Cybersecurity. I'm responsible for the delivery of our security services for our clients. I have over 12 years experience in IT. 10 of those I've worked in an MSP environment. I've got hands-on experience with various aspects of security, everything from system design to handling ransomware infections, email security, and the list goes on. I'm a certified information security systems professional. It's commonly referred to as CISP. It's a globally recognized certification accreditation. It demonstrates a broad knowledge of cybersecurity from both a management perspective and a technical perspective as well. As a part of this accreditation, I'm required to demonstrate ongoing professional development and across various areas of the security. So I'm up to date with all the latest industry knowledge. I'm just going to introduce you to Jose. Jose.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rich. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. My name is José Lázaro. I am a partner security architect at Microsoft, and I've got the best job in the world, which is building Microsoft solutions around security for SIEM, XDR, cloud security, and now AI with Copilot. Thank you for the invite, Rich.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the risk landscape as we see it today. So cybersecurity does not start in the IT department. As it starts very top level management within the business. So what are we protecting in our business? We're protecting financial security. We're protecting business growth. We're protecting lost revenue, damage to our IT systems and hardware. We're protecting the reputation and the brand of our business. Things like password management. Talking about things. If you have a think back through some of the history of some of the cybersecurity events that you might have thought of, think people like LastPass. They had a data breach. Their reputation has been damaged from that. Other ones, maybe British Airways. We see them in the news all the time. These are cybersecurity and IT related issues that have impacted the reputation of those companies. Security of the business must be considered as part of your business strategy, and we must consider the risks to the business as a whole. We need to consider what we're trying to achieve when we're doing this as well. So your IT department, your IT team, your IT provider can help to implement these controls to reduce the business risk to an acceptable level, whether that's a threat of a data breach, downtime. Your IT teams can help you achieve this. So we're leading with risk. So what's risk within a business and how do we deal with that? Well, we manage risk in an everyday life. We lock our doors when we leave our house. We track our phones to prevent theft and data loss. We insure our homes against damage. Everyday life, if you think about when you drove to work this morning, you could choose to go down a different route. That's an example of avoiding risk. You could drive slower. That's an example of reducing your risk. You could insure your car. That's transferring your risk. Or you could just choose to drive a normal speed, go to work the normal way, and that's accepting your risk. So we can apply those same concepts into cybersecurity and your business. So cybersecurity is risk isn't just data loss, it's disruption. It's ransomware data loss, it's reputational damage, protecting your core business against these risks before they happen. So what are the most common threats? Well, in 2019, 90% of UK data breaches were attributed to human error. So they're always social engineering. 43% of all breaches are linked to insider threats, and that's your own staff. So that's intentional or unintentional. You can see from these statistics, phishing is the main common cause of these data breaches, followed closely by weak passwords. Attackers use a technique called credential stuffing, reused passwords, and they find these passwords and they use them on multiple accounts. So a good example of this would be, let's take Bob, right? Bob has a password. He's made it very difficult. He uses uppercase, lowercase, and numbers. Let's say it's difficult password 1, okay? So he uses his password in MyFitnessPal. Lots of people use that app. And then one day, MyFitnessPal suffered a data breach. In fact, they did in 2018. Bob's email address and password are now freely available for anybody to find on the dark web. Attackers use resources like this to go and get this information, and they will use his password and try it with other accounts like Google, Facebook, and so on. So if they manage to find Bob's work email address, couple that with the password that they've got from MyFitnessPal, and they're on to a good chance that they might be able to do something with that. So the next threat is unpatched software and systems. Your network is only as secure as your most unsecure asset. So that's like the weakest link in the chain. Attackers are very good at finding weaknesses. They won't waste any time trying to attack the most patched and secure devices. They'll look for your most unsecure devices and they'll work on those first. So what are these threats? So we've got, it's your own employees, and it falls into 2 categories. You've got your external threats and insider threats. External threats are things that we're all aware of, things like phishing. That's your, people trying to trick you into supplying sensitive information over email. Phishing is the same, but for on a phone call. So you might receive a phone call and they're trying to get information out of you. Smishing is another one. It's just another fun way of saying it, but it's basically text messages. We all get these unsolicited text messages. And weak passwords. I won't list them all, but you're getting the idea. Insider threats is the other one for your internal employees. And that breaks down into a few other areas. So we have our malicious insiders. So these are people who might intentionally cause harm to the organization, often for personal gain or revenge. You've got negligent or unintentional insiders. These are employees who unintentionally expose the organization to security risks. We have compromised insiders as well. So employees whose accounts, credentials have been taken over from external attackers. And then we've got third parties. Lots of businesses have contractors, vendors who, your vendors may get compromised and then either negligently or maliciously cause problems for you. Next, you've got operating system and patching vulnerabilities. These are common threats. So patching is an ongoing challenge. There's no such thing as a 100% compliant network. There's always patches. There's patches, hundreds of patches and thousands of patches coming out every day. Almost like it's like a game of whack-a-mole. There's a new threat every single day, but we need to make sure that we hit the nasty mole on the head rather than the nice ones. So we work on the worst ones first. So how can we approach this to reduce your risk? Layered security. You may have heard this before, but the best way to tackle this is to have lots of different controls, but choose the right ones which do the best thing for your business. So there's a balance between security and functionality. In general, the more secure something is, the less functional it is. The more functional it is, the less secure it is. A good example of this might be a cash machine. If you go to a cash machine down your high street, you put your numbers in, you've got 6 options. That's it. It gives you money, gives you your balance, pinch your balance, nothing else. The functionality is very, very slim, but it's a very, very secure system. There's no limit to the number of layers that you can have. The more you have, the more secure you'll be. But if you think about locks on a door, you could put 10 locks on a door. Are you safer? Yes. Is it needed? Probably not. But no, depending on the level of risk to your business and the value of the data behind those locks, then yes, absolutely. You probably want the right amount of layers, but the more the better. So these are some of the products that I'm going to talk to you about a little bit later. razorblue offer three main security solutions to tackle these risks. These incorporate the Microsoft Security Stack as a foundational solution to help you deliver these services. These are the products. It's Prevent, Detect, and Aware. I'll go into these in much more detail after we speak to Jose. I'm going to hand over to you now, Jose. We're going to discuss some of the Microsoft Security Stack. And yeah, he's going to go through that with you. Thank you, Jose.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I'll give you a bit of background of what I do at Microsoft. My job is designing solutions. I work with enterprises of all sizes in the UK and EMEA. I also work with Microsoft partners, so I get to see the end-to-end security, right? How it works from beginning to end. And I think it's important to understand that cybersecurity is evolving, and now we have many more challenges. And if you can go to the next slide, please. What I've done for you today is to put together a very short but punchy presentation on what we're seeing at Microsoft based on threat intelligence, based on our platforms, the research that we do, based on my experience, and based on the solutions that we offer to cover or to close all of those gaps that you might find within your industry, your company, or so on. So if we go to the next slide. I think the first thing that we have to do is to acknowledge that security has never been more complex, right? It keeps evolving. Rich, I'm sure you would agree. Is it 4 years ago we had COVID-19? It was chaotic, right? We had to allow people to work from home, to bring their own devices, to then move data across personal devices, phones, whatever it was. I think that made businesses realize that they had a gap, they had issues that they had to tackle, and they waited until it was too late to do something about it. Looking at today, you have the complexity of the cloud as well. You have now organizations using multi-platform, using whatever it is, public cloud providers, but then not having a clear asset inventory. They don't know what they have. They have so many resources all over the place. That's really hard to actually have some risk management around that. You don't know where to start. You don't know what you have. And then most recently, I was doing some research around ransomware because I have to speak to my customers about it. And I was reading about a ransomware group called REvil. They're based in Russia. They actually got caught about a year and a half ago. But basically, they created a new scheme where they were offering employees, and it is relevant because you mentioned insider risk. So what they were doing, they were offering employees a fee, an affiliate fee for them to compromise the business. So they will give them a USB stick with some malware in there. And then the only thing that that person had to do, that employee, was to plug it in on the laptop, execute a file, and then compromise that device. If that device was successfully ransomed and they managed to make some lateral movement, which means just moving across different domains within that business, then that person, that employee, will get that fee, that commission. And it could be up to 30% of the ransom paid. So imagine if you had paid $100,000, that person, that employee would have gotten $30,000, right? That's how it works. That's the complexity. Doesn't matter what you do, they're going to find a way, the hackers, to move to the next step. So that's the main challenge. And then when I talk to CISOs, security leaders, board members, they reckon that they have around 80 security solutions in-house, right? It's impossible to keep up to all of that, right? How do you manage all of those portals? How do you manage all of those accounts that you need to actually browse through and digest all of that information? It's impossible, guys. It's really hard to keep up. And not only that, how do you find the people who can manage all of these things, all of these tools? Nearly impossible. And then alert fatigue, right? We've got 80 solutions in place, analyzing data, producing alerts, incidents. Do you have in-house, as a small business, the right people who can actually do something about it? You might not. And again, even if you have the money to hire somebody to join and do all of this work, it's not going to be enough because now hackers are using AI automation to actually find those gaps and break into your systems. Based on that, what does people want, businesses? They want to find ways of having a more effective investigation. They want to reduce the noise so they can focus on what really matters. They want to prioritize. They want to have a rack status. You're red, amber, and green. Find a way of prioritize what needs to happen, right? And not also that, but also have recommendations on what actions needs to be taken to close those gaps. And then how can you stop attacks at machine speed, right? And I'm going to keep using machine speed because this is what hackers are doing these days. Now they're using AI and automation to break, to find the gaps and compromise your business. Can we move to the next slide, please? Again, looking into that sophistication of attacks, you now have ransom as a service, phishing as a service, malware as a service, you name it, you can find it on the dark web. All of these groups, these cyber criminals, are offering these services to anyone, which means there's no entry barrier anymore for anyone to compromise your business. If they want to get in and you don't have the right security controls, they're going to find a way. Now, I give you an example around ransomware. I'm going to give you an example for BEC, or business email compromise. I saw 4 months ago, back in December, a very, very clever campaign. This was an email being sent to an organization around Christmas saying, congratulations, you're being awarded your Christmas bonus. I mean, who can click on that? I'll be the first one, right? All you have to do is to sign in with your work email address, your password, your MFA, and you're in. You can see that file. You can see how much you got. Really easy to fall for. And if you think about it, back then, 5 years ago, you could see a typos. You could see as an English native speaker, nah, that doesn't sound right. These days, you've got ChatGPT, you've got Copilot. I mean, it's really, really easy to fake these emails, right? And just bypass that sort of like natural controls that we used to have before by knowing that that doesn't sound right. And then data exfiltration, another example again, he's looking at this employee. He was being dismissed for whatever reason that I'm not going to disclose. And then we could see through Microsoft Solutions how this employee was sharing a lot of data, basically, to this third-party IP address. And then obviously, because of the controls that we had in place, an alert was raised. And when we looked into it, this person was transferring files into WeTransfer. I'm sure you heard of this platform before. So it was exfiltrating data, right? And the only reason we knew about this is because we had the right solutions in place that allow us to have that end-to-end visibility. If you can move to the next slide, please. So EDR, right? 5, 6 years ago, maybe EDR was enough, which was basically protecting that endpoint, okay? But right now, it's not, because EDR is siloed. It's only relevant to that laptop, that mobile phone. It's just not enough, guys, right? Security has evolved. So have the attack surface. The attack surface is way bigger now compared to where it was before. If you can go click on the slide again, please. You have to have XDR, because now you have to take into account emails, identities, endpoints, SaaS apps, cloud, and so on. And you have to be able to correlate, to have a holistic correlation of all of these signals of intelligence to give you a true view of your status, right? You will not be able to achieve this if you didn't have an XDR solution, which is what we offer. Again, I went to Las Vegas 3 years ago. I was doing a conference. I was talking about Microsoft XDR and Microsoft Sentinel as a SIEM solution. And one of the people from the audience, it's funny because vendors will go like competitors, was asking me, Jose, great. Why would you put all of your eggs in one basket, first of all, right? Saying Microsoft can do all of this. Well, eggs come in a pack for a reason. You don't go to the shops and buy 2 eggs, do you? Right? That's the first thing. You need to have that full end-to-end visibility. You have to have that correlation. You have to have that, let's say, understanding of what's going on in your environment in one place. But secondly, and more importantly, is that now 3 years down the line, this same vendor is doing XDR, which means that we were right 3 years ago, but then also helps me to support my statement of XDR is what the future looks like of security. And if you embrace this approach, you'll be missing out. If you can move to the next slide, please. Now, just looking at what we have to protect, right? You have now something that we call the Microsoft Security Operations Platform, which is the unification of all of your domains within your business. Let's call domains your identities, endpoints, applications, emails, and so on into one place, all consolidated. And what we offer is a way of going through a full investigation lifecycle where you go from prevention, protection, detection, response, and extension of that through APIs and automation. And again, this is not to be confused with the services that you offer, Rich, obviously, which are named quite similar. But again, guys, if you didn't have a way of joining all of those dots together, there's no way for you to take action in real time. I think that's the biggest takeaway. You need to have that correlation, contextualization of your data so you can then take actions. If you can move to the next slide, please. So when I'm talking to CISOs, security leaders, or technical people, I always refer to our zero trust architecture, right? This is how you get started in your cybersecurity journey. You have to look into all of those domains. For example, your identities. They could be on premises, they could be on the cloud. How are you going to protect them, right? And what I'm doing on this is telling you what solutions Microsoft has to actually protect this domain, right? For example, you have Entra ID, you might have Defender for Identity for on-premises, Active Directory. When you move to endpoints, you have Microsoft Intune for device management. You have Defender for Endpoint for EDR antivirus against that device. But again, all of these can be consolidated and put together as controls that you must have as a minimum viable configuration to be secure in your business. And you will leverage, for example, Enter ID, conditional access, to make sure that if a person wants to access a file from SharePoint, for example, in your business, that person needs to come from a certain location. Let's say it needs to be based in the UK. It needs to come from a managed device with Microsoft Intune, okay? But also that device have to have an antivirus installed, which could be Defender for Endpoint. If that device doesn't meet that criteria, that person cannot access SharePoint online. As simple as that. And as you can see, we protected 3 areas, 3 domains with just one solution, which is conditional access, right? This is how you join the dots. And then when you move to the right side of this slide, as you can see, you have data, applications. Very interesting. When you, for example, deploy Defender for Endpoint on a machine, what that will do is to scan that endpoint, that laptop, and it will create a software inventory on a portal, on a dashboard, on your Defender XDR portal. And what that will allow you to do is that with a click of a button, you can unsanction an application, which means that that application cannot be executed or installed on that device or utilized at all. It will block that execution. So you are in full control, which of course will help you to fight shallow IT. You won't have people trying to use third-party storage solutions, for example, and so on. Again, it's the value of understanding what's going on in one place. Now, if we move to the next slide, please. This is our capability mapping. Again, it's quite comprehensive, right? You have your Microsoft Entra. You can see how you can join all of the dots around endpoint security. You have your users, devices, mobile devices, and then how you manage those workloads through MDM, which is mobile device management, MAM, mobile application management, how you can create user profiles, and so on. There's only so much you can do. And if you click again on the slide, please. I'm not going to spend too much time of these, but again, guys, many people don't know this, but Microsoft is the biggest security vendor in the world. Did you know that, Rich, before?
Yes, I did.
There you go. I think we don't shout enough about it, right, sometimes. And of course, you are one of our, great partners. You do a lot of work with us, but many customers don't understand this. Some people say, oh, okay, I'm going to get Microsoft. They sell laptops as a Surface laptop, or they sell licenses so you can use Office. No, we do security and we do that very, very well. So it's important to understand that you can get a lot within one SKU or license. You can get up to 50 product categories with Microsoft E5, for example. And again, I'm not going to go into licensing, but there's so much you can do. And when you speak to people like Rich, who can tell you what good security looks like, they can drive that forward with you. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, again, this is the end-to-end that Microsoft offers. You can see you have your Microsoft XDR at the top. You have endpoints, Defender for Office for emails, Defender for Identity for on-premises, and so on. Not going to spend too much time on this, as I said before, but again, guys, always speak to experts. There's always a solution for what you need, and leverage the knowledge that these guys have. Go to the next slide. I've got two demos for you. The first one is on Beck, which is the business email compromise. As you can see, this is what it looks like. Okay, let's say you get an email, as you can see, and on the 10th of 7th, and what's going to happen is that you get an URL and you get an attachment. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you click on the URL and nothing happens on your machine? You think, it's okay, nothing is going on. Actually, by just clicking on that email, what you're doing is that you're executing a payload. And what that will do is to exfiltrate your authentication tokens to a third-party hacker, whatever it is, trying to get into your accounts. For those that might not know what a token is, when you go to, for example, office.com and you enter your username, your password, and your MFA code, that will generate a token. And that token is what says this person is who they say they are, so I'm going to allow them in, they can access and go through the portals. And of course, you need that, because if you didn't have that token, then you will have to sign in every time you go into your applications, into SharePoint, Outlook, Teams, and so on. So what they do is to take that token, and what that will give the cyber criminals is access to your applications, to your emails, to everything you have. And once they get in, basically, in your emails, for example, they were not going to change anything. They're not going to touch it. They're going to create forwarding rules, basically. So now they can see what you're doing, what you're up to, and then wait until it's the right time to hit. Again, if you had, for example, Defender for Endpoint in place and you have Defender for Office 365, this will look into behaviors and will stop the attack as it happens, because it would say, this is strange. There is somebody from a different location. Let's say these people is in Nigeria, which is something that we see a lot, trying to sign in into this inbox, and then a forwarding rule has been created. And if we go to the next slide, please, I will show you what it looks like on the graph. As you can see, you've got your attack story, okay? And when you click on the play button on the left side, it says 8 out of 8 activity alerts. You can see what's been happening step by step, right? You can see this person signing from the UK, but then they click on an email, and then that email had an URL. You can see what that URL was, which created a redirection, and so on. Not gonna dive too much into that, but again, it will give you that end-to-end view of what's going on. If you click on the next slide, please. Then this will join up with automatic attack disruption, because as soon as that activity is noticed by the system, then it's going to happen, some correlation is going to happen, which is basically alerts are going to be grouped up saying, right, something is going on. I think all of this is linked, and then an incident will be created. And as you can see, you've got a multi-stage incident now going on. You had somebody from falling for phishing, to then just tokens being exfiltrated, affecting identities, to then having maybe some malware executed, some ransomware executed on that machine. All of that can be tracked to our platform. If you go to the next slide, please. Again, you get that end-to-end. You can see how the portal, the solution actually stopped the attack as it happened. And when you click on the left side on the panel, you click on what's going on, you get the timeline. You can actually dig into exactly what they've done and what did Defender did to stop this. For those that might not know as well, we have something called threat analytics, which is the backend threat intelligence that Microsoft has. And then our solutions leverage all of this knowledge across the stack to make sure that you are not being compromised. I think that's the last slide. If we go to the next one. Okay, and then you get the recommendations as well on what to do to stop these attacks as they happen. Okay, so with that, I will now hand back over to Rich. Thank you, and if you have any questions at the end, more than happy to answer. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you very much, Jose. That was brilliant. So next, I'd like to just discuss razorBlue's three main security solutions: prevent, detect, and aware. And as I mentioned before, Microsoft is a foundation to a lot of these products and feeds into it. So you'll be able to relate to that now. So what's prevent? So we realized that we needed a product that was going to, it's got to be something that's going to lay the foundation for your network. Prevent is a prerequisite to the other products, apart from one that's not listed here. Prevent is our vulnerability management and security optimization solution. It's a bit of a mouthful, but what that basically means is it's a proactive service. It maintains the cybersecurity posture of your business, and it ensures that the environment is not an easy target. It works to reduce the operating system and application vulnerabilities. So they come out every day. As I said before, there's thousands of these vulnerabilities, and it's a game of whack-a-mole. By getting rid of these, we're reducing the overall risk to your business. 99% of cyber attacks exploit known vulnerabilities. So if you think about it, that means that only 1% of attacks actually exploit vulnerabilities that are unknown. So this is the best place to start. If we remove the vulnerability, we remove the threat. If we remove the threat, we reduce the risk as well. So what do we need to do? We need to patch quickly. We need to patch and remediate these vulnerabilities. It's not all patching either. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but threat actors are constantly in a race to reverse engineer these security patches. When a patch comes out, they're looking at these patches and they're trying to work out, well, what did they do to fix it? And then they'll try and reverse engineer that patch so that they can exploit it. We need to ensure that all of our assets are patched. I mentioned before about the weakest asset on the network. Well, that's why it's important that we have full visibility of the network. And that's what a vulnerability management platform does. Patching solutions are great, but what happens if a new device pops up on the network somewhere? The vulnerability management platform will see that rogue device and will be able to deal with it. Patching solutions don't do that on their own. Some devices go offline and they don't patch, and they come back online and then they get stuck, or they don't reboot, some applications just aren't supported. These devices need to have licenses with a security vendor security feed. If they're not getting security updates, they're not going to be safe. Some of them have unsecure configurations. What we call it an out-of-the-box configuration. When you get a device and you buy it from the shop, it has an out-of-box configuration. It's not necessarily a secure configuration. They have to strike a balance, as I said before, between functionality and security. So generally, you need to increase that security to meet the needs of your business. So these account for 60% of breaches, even those with patching solutions in place. So why prevent? Well, without proactive security, the risk to your business is it's higher, simple as that. So we work with you to reduce that risk as efficiently as possible. We receive real-time automated alerts for new vulnerabilities. So we have an agent that sits on your machine. It scans about every 15 minutes, and every 15 minutes, if it finds a new vulnerability, we'll get an alert and it will raise a case for us. We'll hunt out the unpatched devices. We'll find the unsecure configurations, the registry fixes, and we'll plug these holes for you. We'll actively monitor the software, and we'll make sure they're supported. They're not end of life. Otherwise, they're not getting security updates. And we'll audit the security. This is the important part as well. It's not just vulnerability management. It's not good enough. We need to go out and find these unsecure configurations. That's what we do. We audit the network, and then we actively harden the network and the configuration with the systems that you have in place. So the next product is Detect. So this links quite heavily into what Jose's just been talking about. Detect is our cross-platform detection. So that's basically XDR response solution. So it's 24/7 service, it's reactive, and it's designed to detect and contain threats before they become a problem. The solution aims to sort of detect anomalous behavior, as Jose mentioned before, and we then can look at those, like we saw on the screenshots, and decide, are they malicious or not? Some of these things that come through are not malicious. We see them, it happens quite frequently in many companies where PA of a CEO might send out a very large email and it sends out to 300 people. Well, that might not look normal. So the security team often get an alert about that, and it'll say, well, this is unusual. Why is this person sending out 300 emails in one go? Our security team will look at things like that and will investigate and make sure it's not malicious for you. 84% of attacks are initiated through email. So linking back to what Jose said about business email compromise, this is an excellent example of how Detect can identify and stop that threat before a breach occurs. So for the remaining risk, how do we detect this? How do we tackle it? Well, 24/7 threat monitoring is key. We detect and analyze these threats and these behaviors. If we contain them and we stop it from happening in real time. It's AI driven as well. So this threat detection is a game changer. As Jose said, the attackers are using AI against us, but we can also use AI to detect these unusual behaviors. AI is particularly good at detecting anomalies, so we use that to our advantage. We ingest logs as well from many different sources. So they come from firewalls, it comes from Microsoft, it comes from anti-malware, it comes from your email anti-spam systems, it comes from your backup systems, and we correlate all those logs into the system. Anything suspicious could raise alert. We don't raise a case for everything that our clients see, but we do look at every single alert that comes in and we make sure that it's not a problem. We identify the root cause of these problems. We confirm that all the threats undergo root cause analysis, and we investigate the attack chain and we make sure that it's fully mitigated or remediated. And whenever any kind of a breach actually does occur, so if the law has been broken, any breach to your network, we always do a post-incident report. We provide a timeline of events and recommendations to ensure that that doesn't happen again. So why this product? Without reactive security, the risk is just much higher than without it. I think Jose covered that really well in his slides. The consequences of a data breach, full system compromise, it can be catastrophic to a business. LastPass and British Airways, yeah, they're big enough that they've got away with it, but there are lots of companies out there that have, it's ended their business. It can be data loss, reputational damage. It disrupts your operations. You can be out of action for a day, maybe multiple days, multiple weeks. It depends on how bad the attack was. You lose revenue in that time. There could be fines. It could be legal. Your insurance might not pay out. And also you may lose your competitive advantage against your competitors as well. The next product that we have in our stack is Aware. So Aware is our solution to reducing human risk. So this service provides a solution to sort of a lot of the compliance needs out there, things like Cyber Essentials and ISO 27001. This service has been designed to upskill your workforce, increase cybersecurity awareness, and integrate security into your business processes. The solution, what we're aiming to do here is modify your workforce's behavior, reduce that overall human risk to the business. I'll talk about that a little bit more now. So what am I talking about with human risk? What's human risk? People can be phished. It leads to unintentional disclosure of sensitive information. They could give away their credentials. They could give away personally identifiable information. I always trip over them three words, which can result in sort of GDPR breaches. If you give away PII, then you have to report it to GDPR within 72 hours. If you don't, you can be prosecuted. Social engineering is another significant threat that we need to worry about. Employees can be manipulated into lots of different things, not just email. It could be, they could be getting into your building through the front door, and they could get into your building that way, plug in a USB stick, whatever it might be. Disgruntled employees or staff who lack training in GDPR, email hygiene, and password management, they can be the cause of data exfiltration and other problems like that. When it comes to password management as well, how often humans always try to take the path of least resistance. They tend to do the easiest thing. We need to train people when they're doing those things, how dangerous they can be. So if they choose a bad password, what the impact of that can be. And then lastly, improper training in data handling, it can jeopardize the business security overall. We mentioned GDPR before, but staff who aren't trained in data handling processes can expose the organization to more risk. So how do we tackle this? Is there a silver bullet? No. In a word, we talked about layers of security before. So these 3 different products are 3 separate layers. They each tackle a different thing. We can use technical controls, to tackle this, but unfortunately, we've mentioned AI several times, and the attackers are using AI all the time. Jose covered it really well about how they can use AI to get rid of all those language issues that we can't spot anymore. So it just looks like a perfect email now. It's very difficult to distinguish some of these phishing emails. Attackers always favor targeting the human element today because they know that your anti-spam is going to block the email, unless they've actually compromised an account and they can send an email from there. Spoofed emails and these sorts of things rarely get through these days. So what we need to do, how do we deal with this? We need to build, firstly, a positive cybersecurity culture. And how do we do that? It's difficult. It's not just a one-day task. It's not a checkbox exercise. You've got to train your staff, and you've got to keep training your staff. We can't stop doing it. We have to do it all the time, regularly. Otherwise, people forget. We need to build security into the company strategy. It needs to be a part of your business goals and where you're going and how you're going to get there. Protecting the assets and business processes that you need to protect your business. You need to set clear policies and procedures for staff. We need to make sure that there's continuous improvement in this as well, and that everything is secure by design. I mentioned before about out of the box. Things need to be secure by design. We need to make sure that when we install things that it's secure. And the last one that people forget about as well, I think, in my opinion, is embracing new technology. But we need to find those technologies that work with our people and our staff, not against them. It works with the business. Some of these things, people always get frustrated with MFA. I think it's a really good example to talk about because people feel it works against us, but you really need to see the bigger picture on that one really isn't working against us. But there are new technologies that can replace MFA these days that get much better. So yeah, we can talk about that another time. So, and then we need to monitor this as well. We need to keep monitoring our awareness process and make sure that it's not, that it's working. So that's a part of this process, and that's baked into Aware as well. So the positive culture, if we don't have a positive culture, negative culture can be disastrous. If your staff feel like management are out to get them or catch them out, and they don't provide them security training, then they're going to be very disincentivized, or they're not going to be interested in making the security of your business a good one. So when it exists, staff are less engaged, they're less likely to do the right thing, they're less likely to care. So we need leadership backing. It's really important that your senior leadership team back the initiative. They need to let staff have time to train. They need to follow the processes themselves and lead by example, and that's really important. Management need to enforce security policies as well and be seen to act when they're broken. So if we have a policy in place for data security and somebody breaches that policy, we need to deal with it. We need to at least have those conversations, have processes in place to deal with that. If it's repeat offender, it could be an attitude problem, could be a knowledge problem, whatever that problem is, we've got to deal with it. And then policy alignment. You should have policies in place which set the tone for the security initiatives of your business. Things like social media policy, data protection policy, access control policies, information handling policies. There's so many of them. I'm not going to list them all. But your staff need to have read and understood these policies, and you need to be able to prove that they've read them and enforce them. Otherwise, we can't enforce them. If they haven't read them, we can't enforce it. So how does Aware work, and how does it tackle all of that big problem? Aware is split into sort of three separate parts. The first part is phishing simulation. I'm not going to go into full detail into a full phishing simulation product, but basically it will send simulated fake emails to your staff, and they're crafted by our security engineers. So we'll send them out and we'll do them as frequently as you want them. They're conducted at a time that suits your business. So, we'll work with you. We're not out to cause pain, because we understand that sometimes these phishing simulations can cause problems as well. They're not just helping. Sometimes if you send them out at the wrong time, maybe you've got a really important project going on and you don't need to be distracted at that point, then great. Or maybe you do want to send it out at that very time. Yeah, so it's up to you. We can work with you on that. If someone falls victim to a phishing email, they're informed straight away. They're not left in the dark, and then they get training straight away assigned by the platform. So that training will be relevant to the email that they've just clicked on as well. So if they've done something wrong, it'll hopefully teach them what they just did wrong in that situation. So just to sort of reaffirm, we're not trying to catch people out. We're not trying to discipline them. We've got to train them. Otherwise, it's going to be a negative culture. So the outcome of this is that people will hopefully learn what to look for in a phishing email. The second part of Aware is the regular training assigned to staff. So this can be as regular as you want it to be. It could be daily if you wanted. Most people go for monthly, but it's up to you. The key to the whole thing is the gap analysis. Okay, so gap analysis is usually about 35, 36 questions. I think it's three questions from each different cybersecurity knowledge domain, and it's fine if you get them wrong. That's the whole point. The idea of the gap analysis is to find out where our weaknesses are. Gap analysis can usually be done every quarter, every 6 months, or every year. It's completely up to you. But when they do the gap analysis, what it does for you is it finds the weakest, and then it allows the system to send training to the staff on their weakest subject. So if I do a gap analysis and I do very, very badly on password management and password hygiene, it will send me training on password hygiene first. So learning progress insights get sent to line managers as well. So managers can effectively say to the staff, why haven't you done your training yet? I need to make sure you've got your training done. None of these courses are more than 10 minutes long either. They're nice and snappy. They're about 5 minutes, and they're all very light-hearted as well. So the third part is the policy section. So this is a system which allows you to conduct policy management and ensure staff have read and accepted your policies. So you can transfer any existing policies you've got into the platform. You can make new ones from scratch, or you can use the provided templates that come with it. You can access this bit yourself if you want to as well, or razorblue will do it for you fully managed. It's up to you. And you can define how often a policy should be reread, whether it just needs to be read once, and you can update and change those policies whenever you want as well. The solution allows you to track policy acceptance and enforce the governance across your business, and that's really key. Otherwise, going back over what we just talked about, this is how we enforce it. And you can use it for not just IT policies as well. You can use it for anything. So it's a great tool. The result for this is that the workforce will have read and understood all of your business policies. It provides accountability, and going back to things like ISO 27001, this is a really good tool for that. So just to wrap up, Jose and I would like to quickly recap the key points discussed. So from me, back to the Microsoft security stack, our proactive security solutions work to reduce risk of your cybersecurity threats. Prevent is key for reducing risk. Prevent is our vulnerability management product. So Prevent is your company's cybersecurity body armor, if you think about it like that. It's fixing weaknesses in security. It's to ensure that you're not an easy target. Detect is key for identifying anomalous activities on the network, investigating those strange things that are going on. Detect is your company's cybersecurity burglar alarm, if you think about it like that. Detecting intruders and stopping them before they've done any damage. And then last but not least, Aware. Aware is critical for building that positive cybersecurity culture. Tackles the largest risk area for me. It's your people. through educating, informing, and holding people account to policy management. Jose, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So from my side, thank you for that really good service, Rich. Thank you for explaining how things work really in the partner world and how you can support your customers. From my side, I think let's get the fundamentals just in first. Zero trust, get started. If you look at some data from the Microsoft Digital Defense Report 2024, you can actually stop 98% of cyber attacks by having very basic cyber hygiene, for example, MFA and your patch management, vulnerability management, phishing, controls. It's very simple. And you have trusted partners who can actually do this for you if you don't have the manpower in-house to actually get these solutions rolled out. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for the invite. Really appreciate you guys and everything you're doing. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat or unmute and we can answer them. If not, let me know. No questions at all. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. If you're interested in any of the services that we've spoken about today, our cybersecurity architects are offering up their time to join account managers for those who are interested. If you'd like to utilize their expertise and gain some feedback on your cybersecurity posture, please let your account manager know. And that's it. Thank you very much for joining, and I hope you found this insightful.